By way of introduction, I have a thing about grocery shopping, and chances are you and I would not go grocery shopping together, but if we would, it would be an adventure. I haven't yet been asked to leave by the store managers to leave the store, but I've been very tempted to rummage through people's grocery carts and explain in great detail what they're about to be eating as far as their health goes. As it is, my wife and I usually grocery shop together, and I'm often found in the aisles pulling off items from the shelf, explaining in great detail to my wife about all the problems with the foods that we're about to eat, which we don't tend to buy. And it usually proceeds to the fact that she says, "Do you always have to do this?" And I said, "Yes, I always have to do this." And it goes on and on until she says, "Would you like to go to the car now?" And I said, it usually hits that point that I take the hint that I've gone too long, and I walk out to the car and find a book that I've stashed away, and it works out pretty well. So that's usually our grocery shopping trip, but I find it quite an adventure. I've been speaking at this health expo for 3 years now. The first time I spoke, it was an hour on gluten sensitivity and intolerance, and I thought people would get the idea, and they do, but it's such a big deal, but I'm not going to talk about it much, maybe only 5 minutes today. I've got something a lot more interesting to talk about, I think, from my perspective. But was anybody here last year who heard me speak? A number of people, yes, I see a number of people here that are familiar. Well, last year after the program, I was sitting outside on a bench waiting for my wife to pick me up. And I was sitting there, I had my tie probably crooked and my hair mussed, and I had books and boxes and briefcases, and a kid on a skateboard, I don't know, kids these days, 20 years old, I don't know, rode by, and he flipped up his skateboard, and he was waiting there a little ways from me, and I noticed he kept eyeing me, and finally he said, "Sir, may I ask you a question?" And I said, "Sure." He said, "Did you just get fired?" And I said, "No, I didn't get fired. I just had a long day." So when I was called to speak about my topic today, a while back, the first thing that came to my mind is, well, I'll talk about fatigue. Fatigue would be great to talk about. Everybody has fatigue, right? Well, we've been doing a lot of programs on fatigue, and I'll tell you, fatigue is a real amazing topic. There's a lot going on with fatigue. It's not just you're being drained, and we're going to talk about fatigue. But we're not going to talk about fatigue today. I have something even better. So what we're going to do is, I did a workshop on fatigue. It's about 35 minutes long, and we're going to hand you out the website address that you can look at this video in the privacy of your own home. Today what we're going to talk about is something that I hope each one of you can take something and use it for your own good, starting today, starting right now while you're sitting here. And I call this the Wellness Mandate. And let me overview today. We have an hour and not near enough time to talk about everything, but we're going to go pretty quickly through this. But the Wellness Mandate is my way of saying, everybody has their idea about what health is and what to do, right? So what if we put this in some kind of perspective and cover it with a holistic point of view? So many professionals and experts have their own little item that they think is healthy, and it's all good, but how do you incorporate the whole thing together? And so that's what we're going to talk about, spend a lot of time doing. We're going to look at healthy living through a holistic model. And the whole premise is this. You are somewhere between a diseased healthcare bystander, a person who really does nothing for their health, not you. You're here, you've paid money, you've put the time in to be here. But there's many other people are on this category of a diseased healthcare bystander, all the way up the ranks to a progressive wellness champion. What does that mean? That means doing as many things as you can possible to improve your health. Now, why? Listen to me. You don't have to listen to me. You're here, and I expect you will. But I want you to think about what I say and not believe it fully, test it out. I'm gonna make a number of challenges for you that I think anybody can do. But I've been speaking, I do a lot of workshops in my clinic. I do a lot of workshops through town. I speak to doctor groups. I speak a lot of times. I speak less and less now because it just takes a lot of time, but I really enjoy being here. And you're my captive audience in the grocery store, and I'm thrilled to be here. The other thing is, I've written maybe a few more than 3 books. These are some of the books that I've written. My first, actually I started writing in 2001, and it was on agricultural genetic engineering. And let me tell you, I was interviewed on the radio a few days ago about this, I think it was this topic. We talked about a lot of things, but you know, people don't have any idea about agricultural genetic engineering. In Europe, the people know and they don't put up with it. But here in the United States, hardly anybody knows. Does anybody know the damages of genetic engineered foods? Raise your hands, let me see a few people. You know, we haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg on what's going to happen when we've altered the DNA structures of foods and spliced them into other DNA and we eat them. Think about that. And that's what agricultural genetic engineering is. I've wrote a book on exercise, and I've wrote a book on stress. I wrote a book on food and diet. So I really try to cover the bases because I think maybe those 3 are really important, and we're going to talk about those a little bit today. My latest one was brain and brain function. We're going to talk about this today. Do you know, as people age, one of the most common concerns as they age is what? Dementia and Alzheimer's. We're going to talk about that today. And what you can do today to reduce your risks and chances of Alzheimer's and dementia. I put together a book called Peripheral Neuropathy, and we had one, we have another one that's not up here that we picked up that was, shipped to us, that I put on the 20 most researched drugs and their side effects. That's an interesting story too. It's not a story, it's just facts on side effects. Do you ever watch the side effects? The news? And listen, you've got to be crazy to be taking drugs with a list of side effects that are damaging. That's our system's healthcare. This is my book reading list, and I took this a few weeks ago, and I've added 4 or 5 to this, and I've actually snuck one in before I could put it on this, that I've read before I put it on this list. This isn't my bookshelf. This is just the books that I want to be priority. So there's a lot of information on health, more so than ever before, and it's really exciting. So some people here I know are struggling with health issues. A lot of people do struggle with health issues. But I want to take this time and opportunity to tell you that your health condition can make you healthy. If you think about it and you learn maybe what's causing it, you can actually make some health changes in your life. I want you to put that in your brain and think about that. Because every one of us has an innate ability to heal. You have what it takes to get well. And sometimes we don't think about that. It's been taken away from us, I think, in our belief system. But you have everything you need to overcome a cold. Every one of us are conquering cancer every day. Do you know that? We breathe toxins and our cells multiply more than normal, but our bodies can take care of cancers every day. Every disease that we've ever had, our bodies have been able to take care of without intervention, outside intervention. But there's a problem, because we either degrade our health or we promote our health. And there's a fine line between the two, but maybe many people tend to degrade their health by what they do, by what they're doing today. The health that you have now is an accumulation of everything you've done to yourself up to this point. which is a bad deal, but the better deal is if you change some things now, you can improve your health for later on. But we've got to look at many things. We've got to look at nerve flow and diet and exercise, blood sugar, adrenal problems, thyroid function, liver, brain, emotions, toxins, acid, alkaline balance, hormones, immune system, digestion, electrolytes, cardiovascular, multiple systems metabolism, until we get to the point where it's very confusing. And you're right in the middle of this. This is a network, and you're right in the middle of this. Take any symptom you have, and it's webbed and networked together. How do you ever deal with something like this? Well, you know, you don't have to, because your body is doing this all the time. Isn't that an amazing thing? But you have to really look at each of these components and understand the networks. That's why what I've been doing over the last several years is looking at the broad picture. What's going on with this person? What's going on with this symptom? And how is it contributing to other problems going on in the body? Take a look at blood sugar imbalances up at the top left for a moment. The more work we do, the more I'm really convinced that if we balance our blood sugars, many health problems will be under control. But it's confusing. One of the best, let's just dive into this if you can bear with me for 5 minutes. The best sugar test you can ever get is a hemoglobin A1C. Everybody heard of hemoglobin A1C? Okay. Everybody heard of taking a glucometer and testing your own blood sugars? A lot of people do this. The people with insulin resistance problems and diabetes do this as well. But, you know, you hear a range of blood sugars. You want to keep your blood sugars, what, under 100? Is that reasonable? And not maybe below 75? But during the day, it fluctuates so much by how we behave ourselves, what we eat, and if we exercise or not. And for illustration purposes, I'd like to do a quick little demonstration if we could. So you got glucose coming in every time you eat, okay? What happens right away as well? You get a little spike of insulin. That makes sense? That's Mark. Mark hangs on to Julie, and they travel through the system, through the blood system. And then when they reach an appropriate place, like a muscle, I'm the muscle, Mark's going to drop Julie off to me so I can use Julie as fuel. That makes sense? That's sugar metabolism at its very basic. Okay, everybody get that? But what do most people do? They eat a lot of foods, carbohydrates, and it doesn't matter. Sugar is sugar, carbohydrate or not. And a lot more Julies come into the picture. That makes sense? Fruit juices, carbohydrates, crackers, breads, rice, pastas, okay, all that stuff. You get a lot more Julies, so then we need a lot more Marks. That makes sense? So the first 3 minutes, we're going to get a good proportion of Julies to Mark, okay? That's all the little storage of Marks of insulin in the pancreas, okay? But there's more Julies coming in. So what happens is that poor pancreas really has to work. So there's a spike at 3 minutes and then a dip because it has to start making up more Marks. And then it starts rising 5 minutes. We start getting a rise in insulin or more Marks. But what do we keep doing? We keep eating. And we keep eating, which we're supposed to if it's a meal. But that's why you don't have too much carbohydrates as a meal. You're going to get a lot of Julies, and you're going to get a lot of Marks, manufactured Marks. You're going to make Mark up, okay? Now, if the muscle is good and strong, no problem. Young people, usually not a problem. They can handle it. That's sugar. Sugar goes in, burns muscle, and we've got energy. We can do our work. But what happens with some of us, we're a little flabby, we don't exercise. The muscles say, I can't use any more Julie. I'm stuffed. I'm at my limit. Because the sugar pathway goes through, you know, the glycolysis. We won't get into biochemistry. It's so exciting, but Glycolysis turns into pyruvate acid and runs the citric acid cycle, right? Oxaloacetic acetyl-CoA makes, I see people glazing over. Okay, but what happens is when that cell gets burned up in the mitochondria, it says, I'm tired, I can't handle anymore. And what it'll do is put a big X on the cell saying no more. What do we call that? Insulin resistance. We're talking to Mark, say, don't bring any more sugar into my cell, we're stuffed. Thank you, you can have a seat. So if you get that idea, just think about what we just did with Mark and Julie, but it's not really Mark and Julie, it's glucose and insulin. But what happens when we get so full of insulin and sugar that that little pair now has to go to the liver? Now here's where the problems really begin. We got insulin resistance, and you don't have to have a test to do this. We're doing this all the time. Every day, we call them insulin reactors. We've got a high spike of insulin every day. But by morning, you go and take a fasting glucose test, and you've got a level of maybe 90 or 80, and that's good. But you don't know what's going on throughout the day. So I've done this myself, and I teach people, check your sugar levels throughout the day. See what you're doing. That's what the hemoglobin A1C test does. When too much sugar, when too much Julie hangs out, what happens to it? It gets old in the cells. Hemoglobin is a red blood cell. It hangs around for 90 days. But hemoglobin, the sugar attaches to it. That's how they test hemoglobin A1C. It's just the really coolest thing. But then it hangs around more and it gets oxidized. How are we doing? This is so exciting. We could talk all day. I've got a lot more to cover. But the point is, it goes to the liver. What does the liver do? It turns it into fat. It turns it into triglycerides and cholesterol. That's where we get most of the problems. What then happens? It puts the weight on us. That's the problem. And you can see this over and over with younger and younger and younger people. And that's just blood sugar imbalances. Blood sugar will affect thyroid. It'll affect adrenals. It'll affect your immune system. It'll affect brain and nerve system. And that's just sugar. It'll upset metabolism. It'll upset hormones and many, many other complications. So now you know how blood sugar runs. What you learned today will hopefully, next time you eat that delicious scone or donut or everything, I want you to think about what we talked about today. So instead of looking at everything specifically, what if we just looked at some major systems? And I'm talking about what are the engines that drive the system? What if we could look at the engines that drive the system? And then what if we could look at the computer that wires everything together, and that's your brain and nerve system. So let's do a number of things. Let's find the faulty major systems, let's fix them, and then let's do some things. Let's stop doing the bad things and start doing the better things. So do you have a health plan? And I don't mean an insurance health plan, because that's not a health plan. Do you have a plan for your health? If you're traveling from this location to somewhere back east, you'd have a plan. You'd have a map, you'd know what to pack, you'd know when you're starting, you know when you're stopping, you'd know a lot of things. But you're doing that throughout your life, and it has to do with your health. So what are you doing for your health? Are you waiting for something to happen, or do you do something every day to improve your health? Here's what people think. I've got this problem, and something like magic happens, and then I'm going to have a magnificent health. And I think a lot of people think that's true. Something like magic happens and I'll be all better. But remember what I said about your health problem is accumulation of things that you've done. So if you unwrap that, what have you been doing over time that's caused your problem? Because we have a real problem in our society today, in our country. This just boggles my mind. The person on your left, either you or the person on your left is going to have cardiovascular disease. 1 out of 2 people. Between 3 of you, 1 of you is going to develop diabetes. Heart disease, cancer, number one, number two cause of problems. In 1970, when President Nixon declared a war on cancer, we're far from it. We've done a few things to cure some of them, but more people now than ever have cancer. And you know these people. You know these people. Why are we having cancers? Why are we having cardiovascular problems? Chronic lung disease, strokes, Alzheimer's, and diabetes. These are fairly new on the list. And these last two are moving up the ranks. Alzheimer's and diabetes are moving up the list quickly. Now, this is the World Health Organization, and it's a World Health Organization. And they rank different countries. And they say that the United States is the 37th healthiest country by many factors of health out of 191 countries. They spend almost 3 times more money, gross national product, on the healthcare system. Now, let's put this in perspective. Take a car. What's a new car cost? Maybe, I don't know, let's just say $30,000. Now, for $30,000, you could probably get a really good car these days, and it would be dependable and reliable, and you'd go start it up, and it just wouldn't have the problem these days. But compare that to our healthcare system. You're going to spend $90,000 on this car, and it's not going to work. It's going to be the 36th worst car you could have. How can we put up with this? Doesn't that make any kind of crazy sense? Conclusions are from World Health Organization is it's expensive and it's ineffective. And what I say is everything we're doing about our health is wrong. It can't be right if looking at those statistics. Let's bag everything and start over. If you had a car that worked that bad, you'd probably scrap it and start all over, designing it and rebuilding it. That's business. So these are my own opinions. I believe people are really concerned about their health, but I don't believe people know what to do, who to believe. I don't believe they know who to believe. And I don't think they really know what to do. They know parts of things to do, and I get that. People do the right things that they think are right. But the people who know what to do about their health can improve it and improve the quality of their lives. That's the whole point, is you don't just improve your health to have a hobby. I think you should do it to improve the quality of your life. Isn't that the whole point? Because you know, we're all going to die. Have you ever thought about your death? Have you thought about how you'd like to die? Wouldn't it be great to be 96 or 7 or 8 and just come back from a nice long walk, read a good book, and then there you go? But most people, they start early. They start in their 40s dying. It's only later that they get worse and worse. So people that can improve their health can improve their life, the quality of their lives. So let's do this quickly, this health quotient. Number 1, no thank you. I'm not interested in changing my health at this time. I have enough health problems already. Now, I wrote that and I thought I'd be funny, but you know, I really think that's true for some people. They're not interested, and you know these people. I've seen them before. They're just not interested. So, is this one you? I listen to drug TV ads for my health advice. The long list of side effects does not bother me in the least. Or how about this? I search the internet for my health advice even though I'm completely confused at what I find. Now, there's a few heads on that one. Or number 4, I believe everything my doctor says about my health, even though I don't understand it. If you don't understand it, you should say, what does that mean? Explain it in non-Latin terms, in a language that I can understand. Or are you number 5? I'm doing all that I can to improve my health and commit to constantly improving it because I realize the quality of my life is one of my highest values, and I don't want to live like the others around me and their health problems. So kind of choose where you are in that. Can I get some help at my table and pass out the assessment? We're going to pass out this assessment, and you get to keep it. And on the bottom is the link to our the fatigue workshop, and you get that as a bonus. So I want you to think about this in your head. You're going to get the amounts passed out, so you'll have this to take home. So I'm going to go through this right now. True or false? These are all true or false. I eat bread of any kind. I drink juice of any kind. I have more than one serving of fruit a day. I choose agave nectar over sugar. You know what agave, it's a sweetener. Number 5, I get out of breath on my daily walk. Number 6, my cholesterol is below 150. I have diabetes. Number 7, I am overweight. Number 9, I eat rice or pasta of any kind. Number 10, I drink milk. Number 11, I don't exercise regularly. Number 12, neurological conditions run in my family. 13, I don't take a vitamin D supplement. Let me stop there. Vitamin D is actually, I think, a hormone. It's a hormone. It's so important in your cellular metabolism. And isn't it amazing we can make that through the sun, except where we live? So you need, well, I won't say what you need. Let's just keep going. We'll come back to that in a little bit. Number 14, I eat a low-fat diet. Number 15, I take a statin drug. 16, I avoid high cholesterol foods. Number 17, I drink soda, diet or regular. Number 18, I don't drink wine. Number 19, I drink beer. And number 20, I eat cereal of any kind. What are the right answers? This assessment isn't mine. It came from this great book I've read called Grain Brain. It's a medical neurologist who's also studied metabolic functions, just like we're talking about today. If you answered, anybody answered more than 5 yes truths? 5 truths? I don't want to point you out. Okay, we'll keep our hands down. Any more than that? If you answer any truths, any true to this self-assessment, you are pushing yourself towards disease. And the more true questions you've answered, the worse you're going to be. And you look at this list and you say, how can that be possible? I should eat a low-fat diet, right? Right? No, right? I should avoid high cholesterol foods. Sodas. I'm going to talk about fat in a minute, fat and cholesterol in a minute. You know, sodas are one of the worst plagues that our country has ever developed and gotten people to purchase as anything out there, I think. One of the best things you can do is stop, and that's what I almost do in the grocery stores, is these 6-packs, and I don't even know what packs, mounded up, and then they have a little bit of boxed food. It's like, sodas is like the worst thing you can do for your health. The sugar content and the on and on. So you can do what you want to do. Let's go to, some of these are wrapped up together, but you see a pattern here from what we talked about with Mark and Julie, the carbohydrate and the problem with glucose metabolism. The more you hike up that insulin response, the more problems you're just going to develop to have. So the more true questions you have, look at this. I didn't make it up. It's from a neurologist, but I certainly agree with it. And the less you do of these, the better off you're going to be. This is part of your health plan. You can incorporate this as part of your health plan today. People do things for what they think is right based on their beliefs of what they've taught or been taught or what they think is right. And people are funny. They'll have their own opinions about exercise or whatever, and it's like, where did you get that? Or a cabbage soup diet or whatever. I mean, they come up with everything. But it comes down to our beliefs. And there's beliefs that a person without the interest or time or attempts to work on their health have, and then the beliefs about a health and wellness champion, something that they'll do all the time. And let's just go through the beliefs about the champion. I know if I don't do anything about my health problems will surface. Number 2, I know health crisis events always cost more. And let me go back to about the United States healthcare for a minute. I'm not blaming we have two types of health care in our system today. We have acute crisis care, trauma care, and the United States is the best. If you're going to get an accident or need something emergency, you go to the United States. But you don't go to the hospital to get well. You don't go, in our system, we have no places to go to get well. Do you get the difference? I know health crisis events will always cost more, and they do, right? You put off something and it just gets more expensive. Number three, I realize that health insurance companies exist to pay the provider. Isn't that true? Why do we have car insurance, and that's to insure us of a catastrophe. But it doesn't pay our car payment. We have mortgage insurance, but that doesn't pay our mortgage payment. We've flipped it around a bit, and now we're getting sucked into a whole nother conundrum in a few months. It's another topic. Number 4 on the health bystander side, I'm waiting for a stranger to ride through town to give me a magic pill. Everybody wants this one thing that they can do for their health. But you know that stranger or no stranger will never be there. There will never be a magic pill. And number 5, you've seen these people, I really don't care about my health. And you know that no one will ever care more about your health than you. Not your spouse, not your doctor, certainly not your insurance company, no one but you. It's your responsibility. So here's some pictures of what we call the health bystander. You can see these people. And those of a wellness champion, and I secretly snuck in a photograph of my grandbaby and my son and his wife. But things happen progressively. They don't start out bad usually, but they get worse over time. A while back, I was at a big conference in Las Vegas where there was a number of doctors who spoke. And this conference was called a Neurological Metabolic Super Conference. And they talked about, each doctor had their own specialty. And so one of them was a great researcher of vitamin E from back east, and he was talking about tocotrienols and tocopherols, and even deeper the gamma and delta segments of those. And it's like, yeah, we already do that. We're doing this. And the next doctor was talking about fitness, and he works with triathlons, and I said, yeah, we do this. We do your program. And on. One doctor was talking about stress and stress management. Yeah, we do that. And so I'm thinking, watching these guys, I'm thinking, what's one thing I could learn from you that I could take back? And that's what it comes down to. It's just for you here today, what's that one thing, that big nugget that you can take? You're not going to remember all of it. Well, what's that one thing you can take and use? So I'm thinking, what are the most important things you can do to improve your health that you can put into your health plan, your own plan for your health? People will say, they'll say diet, they'll say exercise, and they'd be right. But what we tend to do is stop at a few things and do those too much and forget the others that are so important as well. So what I put together is what I call the wellness mandate. When I first started speaking with you, it's the umbrella of wellness in a holistic model. Let's not just carve a little thing out and call that good. Let's do as many things right as we can so we can move from where we are now into a person with better health and a better quality of life, even tomorrow. Number 1, responsibility. It comes back to you. You have to take responsibility. Number 2, physical health. What are we doing for our physical health? Number 3, emotions and stress. How are we with emotions and stress? Number 4, brain and brain function. Number 5, environment. Number 6, transcendence or spiritual living. Number 7, rest and recreation. So let's go into this a bit. And each of these 7 points, I'd like you to rate yourself as we go through this. In other words, on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 is the best, 0 is not even on my radar screen. Where would you be? So again, responsibility. You alone are responsible for your health. And really, you know what it comes down to? Is related to our self-esteem and even the self-love we have for ourselves. One of the procedures we do in our clinic is when we work with somebody really going through a stressful situation is we actually talk to them about, do you even love yourself? And you should see the looks. It's like they've never thought of it, and a lot of people don't. It's really remarkable. So you have to go back to number one. Start with number one. What rate yourself on your level of responsibility, self-esteem, and even self-love? Not good to, it's just great. I can't get any better, which would be a 9 because you can always improve. Number two, physical health. We spend more time, money, and effort on physical health than I think any of these other components, but number one on the list is the food, diet, and nutrition. That has to be important. You have to fuel your body with the right things. One of the speakers I spoke with a long time ago has a book called If It's Not Food, Don't Eat It. You know, the grocery stores today carry more foods. Do you realize 50 years ago, we don't have the foods that we have today? They weren't even developed or invented. Think about that. Things that are on the shelves there are not good for the body. Let me just talk a bit more about gluten sensitivity, because I think this is where I'm going to put it in. Everybody familiar with gluten sensitivity, gluten intolerance, celiac, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis? Okay. You know, if you think about it a minute, they're all in the same thing. They're just progressions of the problem. Again, with the advention of the genetic engineering plus other things, the other thing we haven't done is we've massively changed our food production and manufacturing and processing than ever before. So gluten, which has been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years, in fact, next week is the first world conference on gluten sensitivity. It's 8 days long, and it's nothing but expert after expert. And I think you can look at it online. That's how big of a deal it is. But gluten is a protein molecule found in mostly wheat, barley, and rye, most of those grains. But it's completely foreign to our bodies. And the body, in its amazing ability to know what to do with it, processes it as best it can. But it goes in the gut. Do you know your gut is 90 to 80% is your immune system is in your gut. So you're tracking your gut, your immune system right off the bat with this foreign protein molecule. It sets up an inflammatory reaction right now. You don't even know what's going on. That's what's going on with gluten. But then the body says, well, we've got to take care of this. This is a foreign molecule. So what does it do? It makes antibodies. That's from the immune system, directed by the nervous system. These antibodies go and chew up the gluten, and that's all good. But what do we keep doing? More gluten and more gluten and more gluten. We hike our intestines up, we inflame them, and people they can have a headache and it be a gluten problem. They can have emotional problems and it be caused by gluten. You wouldn't believe how many things are related to gluten sensitivity first and then intolerance later. What I tell people who don't believe me, and I didn't believe this when I first heard it 7 or 8 years ago, I said, you're crazy. The body's smarter than that. But see what we've done? We think we've outsmarted our food, and we're paying the price. So what I tell people is, for the next 2 weeks, go completely gluten-free. Nothing in your diet. And you're going to have to read the labels, and a lot of sauces and a lot of dressings have gluten in them. Gluten means glue. Glue. It sticks. It holds things together, and it makes things taste really good. That's why people are addicted. And the other thing is, they're addicted because it sets off a nervous system to the opioid. It fires the brain to say, I want more, just like an addict does. Seriously, when you talk to people about gluten and you tell them to quit, they look at you like, don't take that away from me. It's that big of a problem. So go off gluten for 2 weeks. And what will happen is you'll probably, maybe not admit it, but you'll feel better. You'll have more energy, maybe less aches and pains. And then on the 15th day, load yourself up. All the gluten you could possibly eat all day. And that will be the final straw. Because you realize, number one, how well you felt, and then what happens when you reintroduce it back in your diet. I challenge you with that. Some of you are not gluten, are very sensitive to gluten anyways. There's much more we could talk about diet. We could spend days talking about diet, but that's all we're going to talk about today. The next thing is hydration. That means water. That's what I've been doing when I'm up here. Water. We need water to run our cells. Every cell is bathed in water. And soda is not water. And coffee is not water. Water is water. So make sure you load up on good water. Another thing is exercise. Everybody has an exercise plan. Okay, there's a difference between exercise and activity. If you're attempting to exercise, reading a book or watching television, you're doing an activity. That is not exercise, that's an activity. Exercise means motivating the cells to produce more energy than you've ever done before. And so that's where the principle of high intensity interval training comes in. And that's bringing the muscles to complete fatigability, where the muscles can no longer fire and do any work. Anybody familiar with that? Good. Are we all doing that? One thing that I've done is I've invented and developed, I think, the best exercise machine around, and it's sitting in my room right now. Only me get to use it. One of these days I'll get it out. But what happens is, if you can exercise your cardiovascular system, there's two types of muscles really. The your heart is a muscle. So how do you muscle that? How do you exercise that? Well, it's through muscles. And then you've got the other muscles. But what if you do them at the same time? And that's what my machine does. And come to find out, when we were in Las Vegas, this crazy doctor, fitness doctor, had us do these tests, and one of them was push-ups. And so in 60 seconds, how many push-ups can you do in 60 seconds, right? So I'm down there, I'm going, man, I don't know. So I'm down there and I'm doing, and pretty soon I look up, I'm still doing them, and I'm the only one doing them. I did 67 push-ups in 60 seconds. And I don't even do push-ups. But what I'm saying, I think that's amazing. I was going to challenge anybody, and there were some big, beefy guys there. But what I'm getting at is muscle efficiency. That's what you're looking for with exercise. You want to make your muscles efficient. Why? So Mark and Julie can come in, do their work, and go out. That's how muscles should work. They need to be exercising. You're losing muscle mass every year. Every passing year, you're losing some protein, and it's usually in muscles, but we gain the weight so we don't even notice this is happening. Exercise, movement, and activity, and breathing. If you're not getting oxygen, we're in trouble. So rate yourself physical health. It's a big category from 0 to 10. Where are you in this large category? If you want to break it down even better, you can do that. But where are you in exercise and food and diet, water drinking, and breathing? Emotions and stress. We have a great book in our clinic called Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. So the things that have happened to us actually are an energy, they're an entity. If you think of a person, or if you think an emotional challenge, another word is emotional spark, is something that you think about like traffic, or a person, or your job, or something like that. If that's not dealt with, guess what that does to you? It robs you of energy. It takes away from you. Many people, when they first come into our clinic, we've got a pretty good eye out for them, and we can spot them if emotions are kind of right there at the top of their priority list, even though they don't think so. They're not going to get better until the emotions are addressed. And that's related to stress, emotions and stress. So that's a huge topic in and of itself. I wrote a book. It's probably, I think it's 300 pages. It probably didn't need to be that long. You've got to face your stress, but there's many things you can do for your stress. And I want you to look at that issue as well. So rate yourself 0 to 10. How are you with your levels of stress? Number 4, thinking and brain health. This is so fascinating. One of the things that I did, I just finished up last year, I took a 300-hour postgraduate course in functional neurology. And probably about the 6th month, I finally understood a few words they were talking about. But the brain is fantastic, it's amazing, and good thing you have one. I started this list talking about talking to yourself. Just what's your brain talk? What's your chatter? Do you say nice things to yourself, which has to do with emotions and stress? Or do you stress yourself out? Do you think of things that aren't there? How is your brain talk? Dementia and Alzheimer's disease damage this thinking process. Now, I want to tie a number of things together because you're with me so far. I see a few sleepy eyes, but you're chomping on this. Your brain's working, I can tell. One of the worst things you can have to one of the best developments you can do to improve your dementia and Alzheimer's is reduce the sugar barrage that you're placing on yourselves. High sugar content actually shrinks your brain, literally shrinks your brain. It's another reason to watch your sugar level and glucose level. Now, what's the best thing you could do? You know what the best thing you could do to help yourself with dementia and Alzheimer's is learning something while being active. What that means is learning to dance. Think about that. Your brain is processing it. Exercise is one of the best things you can do to improve your brain function. Tai Chi or some slow movement, something like that you're choreographing yourself. It's a fantastic way to improve your brain function. So go for a walk. Here's another thing about diet and exercise. One of the best ways, and I just came across this a few months ago, you want to know a really good way to lower your blood sugar? Right after you eat, go and take a 10-minute walk, maybe within a half an hour after you eat. Why do you think that is? Because you're activating your muscles, you're getting them ready. Mark and Julie can go into your muscles instead of going to the liver and be turned to triglycerides. Isn't that amazing? Have you ever heard that before? A little bit of a walk after every meal or some type of aerobic. Here's another thing. There is no such thing as aerobic exercise. I'll be the first to tell you because I've never heard this before. There's aerobic glycolysis and anaerobic glycolysis. But I said there's only activity and exercise, right? If we're up moving around, we're doing aerobics. If you're on a treadmill watching the news, trying to understand, you're doing activity. You're doing aerobic, but you're not doing exercise. All you're doing is pumping more Mark and Julie's into the muscles. That doesn't exercise them. It just makes them flabby. Exercise is high intensity interval training. You want to really work the muscles, so you go through anaerobic glycolysis. Isn't that exciting? Biochemistry. You go through anaerobic, you get that muscle, so they're going to make more mitochondria. You're going to have more muscle energy points in your muscles that way. Anyways, back to dementia and Alzheimer's. One of the best things you can do, lower your sugar levels and get moving, get active. If you want to get better, do some type of anaerobic exercise. Number 5, environment. This is really important. This is your circles of influence. First of all, it's with yourself. Are you a healthy person to hang around? Do you like hanging around yourself? When I was in Vegas, I walked by this donut shop and nobody knew me. And I thought, look at those pastries. No one would ever know I was there. I could eat it and it would taste so good. And I couldn't bring myself to do it because I know how I would feel and react later. I didn't want to do this. So yourself, are you a good proponent to yourself? Next one is your intimacy, your relationships with your spouses and those around you, close to you. Social environment. Is your social environment healthy or is it harmful for your health? Your vocation, is it a healthy place to work? And on into the world. So on a scale of 0 to 10, rate your overall level of environmental influence. Transcendence. You are more than your physical and mental being. You have a spiritual component. How is your spiritual level? Rate yourself on a scale from 0 to 10. 0 is, I don't know what that means, to 10 to 9. We can only go to 9 because there's always room for improvement. And number 7 is rest and recreation. After all this work, you need a little downtime. You need to rest and recreate. You know your body goes through cycles every second, every minute, every day, circadian rhythm patterns. Only certain hormones come out at night as they're supposed to, as they do during the day. There's a nice rhythm and balance to this. How is your level of rest and recreation? 0 to 10, 0 to 9. You don't get 10. I should take 10 out. 0 to 9. If I added another one, it would be balance. To all these components, it would be balance. You can't just do one thing. You've got to do many things. That's why when I developed my exercise machine, you know, I only work out tops 30 minutes a week. I don't have time to exercise, but I want to make it the most efficient as possible. You don't have to spend a lot of time. You just have to spend a little time in each of these categories. So number 8 would be balance. How's your level of balance? So the formula, how do you do this? Here's my challenge to you. Just find one area that you think is important that you need to work on. And number 2, fix it. Do something proactively. Do something to see if you can change that. And then continue taking action. Do something every day on what you can do to improve your health. Pick one of them. Pick one of these areas. Is it your responsibility? Is it about your physical health? Is it feelings and emotions or stress? Is it your brain? How about your environment? Are there changes in your environments you need to make? How about your level of transcendence? Where you are with that? What about rest? Are you working too hard or resting too much? Again, that's the balance I'm looking for. So I challenge you, take the next 3 weeks. Do the gluten test if you want to, but more importantly, that is important, but pick an area that you can really work on for the next 3 weeks, and I know your life will change. Now, some of you have issues that you're dealing with, health issues that may be out of control and you need some help. Find a doctor. Go get some good help. We have a booth right over here. We're booking people for appointments to get in to find out what's going on. You have a consultation with me, a physical, neurological, and metabolic examination to find out the processes going on. We'll sit down, go over, and put you on a health plan. If it's simple, it's simple. If it's complicated, it's complicated. But we do what we can to, number 1, improve your health so the quality of your life improves as well. Thank you for being here and being attentive.